Hey, GW coming to you live. Hey, I want to tell you guys about a very cool movie that I just watched, and some of you may not have heard of it. I'm not sure. It's called The Final Terror. Now, before I go into this a little bit, there's a couple of things about this movie. It's a mixture of Friday the 13th and Deliverance. So you got your survivalist movie slash slasher movie. Very cool formula, and this one actually works. Now, a lot of other films have copied this, but this one I think was the original. It came out in 1981, but was shelved for 2 years till 1983 until it found a distributor. It was pretty wild. And it also has a pretty cool cast. What if I told you guys Daryl Hannah was in the film? Now, we're not talking, 30, 40-year-old splash Daryl Hannah. We're talking like 21, 22-year-old Daryl Hannah. Sadly, the rest of the cast is hardly recognizable. One name stands out, Adrian Zmed. If you guys watch Bachelor Party, he was one of Tom Hanks's best friend. He was the guy with the tie around the head coming down. You know, very cool dude. Another cat that's in here that I don't know his name, but you guys remember the Twisted Sister video where the guy at the very beginning of the movie is yelling at the kid? Yeah, that guy's in there. He was also in Animal House, and I forget his name off the top of my head. Because, you see him in little bits in movies, here and there. But very interesting, very cool stuff. Um, Movie actually has a lot going for it. Um, it's about a bunch of campers that go into the woods. Excuse me. They go into the woods to clear up. Oh, sorry. They go into the woods to clear up rivers and streams that have been overclogged with, trees and stuff. Now, from the very get go, the character of Edgar, he's a highly dislikable character. I mean, he is just in your face. You know, he's mad that he even has to be there. He's the guy that drives the bus in the movie. He's the character that drives the bus. And from the very get go of the movie, you hate this guy. I'm not going to tell you what happens at the end, but let's just say that what you think might be happening during the halfway point might not be what's actually happening. Couple that with a story about a girl who was raped and her baby daughter is running around in the woods, you have a formula for something incredible. Now, the one thing that I did like about this, well, there's a lot to like, don't get me wrong, is that the atmosphere, they shot this thing in the redwood forest, and it looks amazing. The other thing is this film manages to do something few films do, and that's make the woods actually a scary place. I could go walking through the woods today, and I know in my head, hey, it's just woods, right? In this film, it's a little different. It's like you're wondering what's hiding around every corner, every tree, what's hiding in the brush, and that works. Um, the other thing I liked about it is it didn't go overabundant with gore or practical or just kill, kill, kill. It actually sets the story up to where it's not like a Friday the 13th body count film. It actually builds on the fact that, okay, starts out with a bang, and it literally does. And then it slows down a little bit, and just when you get relaxed and you're settled in, boom, something else happens. And the only thing I could see is that if people are looking for high octane action, they might be turned off with this, but let it build. Because I'm telling you guys, it's a very cool flick. If you give it time, the payoff is pretty cool. The acting was not even cheesy or over the top. It was actually pretty decent. The other thing that did surprise me, guys, is there was only one F word in the whole film. The gore by today's standards would be a PG-13, but this film uses it as sort of a shock because you don't know what's coming, and it's not, like I said, it's not real graphic, it's not over the top and overblown. It's actually well done and handled with a slight of realism. Now, when the murders occur, the interesting thing is that you don't know how people are going to get killed. I mean, in a Friday the 13th movie, dude picks up a spear. You're like, okay, dude's going to get impaled. You know what I mean? This one, you don't really know. The other thing that's very interesting about this is that, the pacing, I just said, slows down, but it works, as I just mentioned. The other thing is that during the end of the film, Adrian Zemed's character, Cerrone, actually climbs a tree. And I was reading about the production of this film, and one of the things that I read was that whole sequence, they hired a couple of tree climbers, professional tree climbers, to do that. And they actually rigged up the trap at the end of the movie. It's pretty cool. But for an 80s slasher, this was probably one of the first ones that was, two movies in one. One, you have a survivalist movie, which is half the movie. Then you throw in the slasher elements, and it makes for a very cool watch. Now, I believe this movie is free on Amazon Prime as of right now. The other thing that I did like is the whole cast. Now, like I said, there's a lot of unknowns in this cast. But you have John Friedreich, I think, Friedreich, whatever his name is, plays Zorch. You have Adrian Zemed, obviously, who was in Bachelor Party, plays Cerrone. You have Ernest Harden Jr. plays Hines. And you have Lewis Smith plays Boone. You also have Rachel Ward plays Margaret. You have Daryl Hannah, who plays Wendy. Not Wendy, Wendy, okay? You have Joe Pantoliano, plays Edgar. Now, Joe Pantoliano obviously went on to fame as Ralph in the Sopranos film, or the Sopranos series. And he was on a couple other things, probably a million things, you guys. And Daryl Hannah, of course, went on to play the mermaid in the Splash films. And you have Akosua Buzia as Vanessa. But, yeah. The cast is, it's a mixture of people known and unknown. Now, I've seen Rachel Ward in a few things, and Daryl Hannah, like I said, and Joe Pantoliano. Pantoliano. Whatever his name is. We know who he is. He played Ralphie on The Sopranos. Because remember, he had that horse Pie-O-My in the show? And then he killed the horse, and Tony killed him in the kitchen. You guys remember? Awesome. But the film, like I said, was shelved for 2 years, and I can't figure out why. Because when I got done watching this, I went into this film not expecting much. A low body count. That's what I expected. And I also expected it to actually put me to sleep. This film, if you pay attention to it, will keep you on the edge of your seat. And I don't know why it was shelved for 2 years, because anybody who saw Friday the 13th, should have invested money in this. Now, this film reminds you of another film called The Prey, which is like a Friday the 13th sort of light version without heavy, all the body count, but has the same atmosphere. And if you put the Prey and this film together, you'd have a double bill. But The Final Terror is interesting because it keeps you sort of guessing as to who did what and is that legend true. Now, the other thing it had going for it was a very short run time. I believe it was 1 hour and 22 minutes long. So it's not really that long. But if you like camping slashers or just, you know, classic slashers from the 80s, check it out because it is a surprising film. There is a scene too midway through the movie where they find a cabin, and it does remind you of Friday the 13th. You know, where they find in Friday the 13th Part 2, as a matter of fact, where they find Jason's cabin and they look into it. Same thing, only it gives you a little bit of a creepier feeling because you really don't know what you're going to find. I mean, Jason's cabin, you already knew Jason was there, but this one, being is that there's potentially two psychos on the loose, you don't know what you're going to find. But I am very surprised with it, and you know, it's a very cool movie. And the fact, like I said, it's unbelievable that it was shelved for 2 years because this film is very entertaining. It's a throwback to the 80s when slashers were, you know, at their peak, you know. And you have some pretty decent actors in here, you know, actors that are, you know, known, you know, throughout the 80s and 80s cinema. You have pretty wicked kills. You know, nothing too graphic, but nothing too tame. You have the suspense of deliverance, the horror of a slasher film. I mean, what more could you guys ask for? So, The Final Terror, check it out on Amazon Prime. You guys will not be disappointed. And tomorrow I'll be doing a review of a film called Frankenstein's Army, which is a very cool experimental film which takes the camera and makes the camera actually a person. You get that first person view, and I will tell you all about that. And I saw it a couple years ago, and it still remains one of my favorite films today, so we will rewatch it, and we will definitely dive into it. But for now, you guys check The Final Terror out. It's a pretty wicked little 80s gem that I think, you know, is underrated. Highly underrated. So you guys check that out. Until tomorrow, GW, peace.